The region known as the Cumberland Gap is located where the states of Tennessee, Kentucky, and Virginia meet. The Cumberland Gap has been a point of passage through the mountains for tens of thousands of years. Folks of African descent migrated through this region. Both free and enslaved Africans entered the area with European land speculators in the mid-1700s. Migration through the region increased as the colonial project expanded. During the period of settlement and colonization, Black people made up 1 out of every 5 people that passed through the Cumberland Gap, or 40 to 60,000, depending on the source. A Black presence has remained in the area of the Gap since that time. Long-term communities settled in pockets across Virginia's Lee County, Tennessee's Claiborne County, and Kentucky's Bell County. These families provided labor for salt and iron production, coal mining, railroads, and agriculture. While providing labor, they also developed their own educational, social, and spiritual infrastructure. Near the turn of the century, another group arrived that would have a great impact on the area: English industrialists. Black, immigrant, and local white families would provide labor overseas investors needed to actualize their vision of a Pittsburgh of the South. One of those rich young Englishmen was Frank Watts. Mr. Watts had invested in the idea of a local steel industry and was instrumental in the forming of Middlesboro Town Company. In 1891, Mr. Watts employed Thomas Hunter as a valet. Hunter was a Black man from Columbia, Kentucky. We believe Hunter was around 19 years of age during his time of employment in Cumberland Gap. At 11 p.m. on Wednesday, March 25, 1891, Tom Hunter was having drinks in the front room of Renfro's Pool Hall, Saloon, and Restaurant. John Allen Burkes, a 45-year-old white man, was in the back playing billiards with friends. John Allen Burkes worked as a depot agent at the Knoxville, Cumberland Gap, and Louisville Railroad Station. He was the Western Union telegraph operator and ticket man. Burkes had been recently relocated to Cumberland Gap from Boyle County, Kentucky. He had left his wife and children there while he worked. According to newspaper accounts, John Burkes' party eventually wrapped up their pool match and settled in the front room of Renfro's bar. There, they encountered Thomas Hunter. The story changes depending on who's telling it. We can be certain that an argument ensued. Here are the various accounts. Someone made a comment indicating that Hunter was drunk, in which offense was taken. Another telling by Dr. H.R. Gibson says that Hunter was leaning on the counter as Burkes' party went to get another beer, at which time Hunter asked Burkes, "What the hell's the matter with me taking a drink with you?" To which John Burkes replied, "You can go to hell too." After a kick from Burkes, Hunter left the premises. A third story related that Hunter began to abuse Burkes in the most violent and insulting language, where others interfered and prevented further trouble. In that account, Thomas Hunter left Renfro's, vowing revenge on John Burkes. One potentially important item of note occurred the month prior in Burkes' hometown of Junction City. Just a few weeks earlier, his brother-in-law, Marshal George Wells, was killed by a Black man as he attempted to arrest him for disorderly conduct. That fresh tragedy could perhaps explain John Burkes' reported aggression toward Hunter in the bar. Nevertheless, what followed is not in dispute. Around 1 a.m., John Burkes and his party left the pool hall. Someone stepped from behind an outhouse and unloaded a double-barrel shotgun less than 10 feet away from John Burkes' face. The close range of the bird shot blew out his eyes, leaving his head and face horribly disfigured. He was killed instantly. Reportedly, the response from the broader community was in favor of the murdered man. Major J. W. Wilson, the superintendent of roads, stated that Burkes was a very quiet man, unoffensive in every respect, and a man who commanded the respect of all who came in contact with him. The immediate suspect of the murder was Thomas Hunter. From news reports, Hunter had fled to Middlesboro, but was captured the next morning by the local police. Around 4 p.m., Middlesboro police, with a strong guard, left with Hunter toward Tazewell, Tennessee jail. Tazewell was the county seat of Claiborne County. The escort took an indirect route to avoid detection through Baptist Gap, but the party was intercepted by a mob set on violence. Some 200 to 300 armed men were staked out throughout the mountains in anticipation of the prisoner's transfer. Near Hamilton Springs, Dr. Gibson, with the assistance of others, saved the prisoner. Cumberland Gap officers then took custody of Hunter. Eventually, the Tennessee officers started again for Tazewell, taking Hunter out a back way. As soon as darkness fell, a mob of reportedly 60 heavily armed men on horses demanded Hunter. That request was refused, but the prisoner was seized by the mob anyway. In the hands of the lynch mob, Thomas Hunter asked to pray. In response, someone shouted he didn't give Burkes a chance to pray. Again, Dr. Gibson rushed in and pleaded for time to pray. It was at this point that reportedly Hunter admitted to the ambushed murder of J.A. Burkes. 1 mile from Cumberland Gap, on the side of Cumberland Mountain, his body was hung from a tree. A card was pinned to him instructing that it must remain until the next day, and so it did. When Tom Hunter's body was finally cut down, 17 Winchester bullet holes were discovered in his corpse. Response from the press mostly praised the actions of the murderers, with one newspaper stating, "Hunter was modeled the night following the murder by the good people of the place. Mob law is expedient to say the least of it," and that the whole community approved of the mob's work. The black community in the area of the Cumberland Gap were greatly excited and declared they will have revenge, though no further incidents were reported. We don't know what happened to the body of Thomas Hunter after it was removed from the mountain. John Burkes was laid to rest back in Boyle County, Kentucky, where his children and widow lived. Though there were a large number of individuals involved in the extrajudicial killing of Thomas Hunter, no indictments were issued. There seems to be little popular doubt as to the guilt of Hunter in the murder of John Allen Burkes. But without the legal record of the incident from sworn witnesses and the constitutionally promised right of due process, we're only left with 2 violently murdered workers and second-hand accounts.